Hi everyone, Alistair Davies here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is all about the grip. I want to talk through the common things I see people do wrong on a daily basis on my lesson tee, what that links into as regards outcome, so what it gives you in terms of bad shots, distance, contact issues, and then how we can make sure we grip the golf club correctly, but also understanding that a correct grip isn't always an orthodox grip for you personally. So making sure we have what I would class as matches or mismatches that make a match so that you can still play functional good golf even with a non-perfect golf grip. If you are a new viewer, please consider following or subscribing. I post videos like this every week, all designed to lower your scores and improve your golf. Thanks for tuning in today and keep watching to learn about the grip issues I see on a daily basis. So, as I said in the introduction, I tend to see a lot of grip issues within a daily basis when I teach people golf. We tend to see a lot of common themes. A lot of golfers that slice the ball will have what we class as a weak grip. A lot of golfers that hook the ball will have a strong grip. This will only happen if they have what I would call a fairly normal golf swing, an orthodox golf swing. Quite often what we see is they compensate in other ways to make the ball go straight. So it's very important that you understand your ball flight whilst you're looking at your golf grip. Otherwise you might be making changes to make yourself look prettier, more orthodox, when you don't need to make those changes because you're only going to make the golf ball perform worse and you perform worse. So it's important to understand that. So let's get stuck into the detail of the grips and what happens and what causes. So for me, the worst thing I see with grips, generally speaking, is what I class as a palmy grip, whereas where the club would sit too much up the middle of your hand here, so too much up your lifeline. Now this grip is very good for putting. It's actually not bad for chipping as well, but in terms of anything that creates power, it is absolutely useless. What happens if you grip it in the palm? The wrist can't function correctly. These joints can't function correctly. So what tends to happen as you try and swing the golf club with any kind of force or power, the wrist goes very, what I would class as limp. The arm will bend, and you tend to get a backswing that will tend to look kind of like this. Also, it makes it very difficult to be able to rotate the hand correctly through the ball because your fingers aren't allowing that to happen. It's much harder to rotate the whole object of your arm rather than your wrist. So we're basically, we want arm and wrist rotation, don't get me wrong, but we don't want to lock it out so much that we don't create any natural hand action. There is natural hand action in the golf swing. So we want this grip to be very much in the fingers, okay? This is the priority number one. Even if the grip was placed too weak or too strong, the fingers is crucial to allow us to generate power and contact. From a contact point of view, again, if it's in the palm, if I can't, what I would call load and unload my wrists, or cock or radial deviate my wrist correctly, then I'm going to struggle to make that radius work and get that contact and power into the ground correctly. So if you have poor power, poor distance, poor contact, and indeed slice the ball, first thing to check out is if your grip is in the palm of your lead hand or not. When we're looking at putting it in the correct placement, let's take a pen. So this is just a marker pen. You can use a Sharpie. Get an old glove, which I have on today. Place the club, and if we look at the grooves, or basically creating a cradle in our hand like this, and let the club sit in that cradle. So it's kind of going, and I'll mark the top line here, and I'll mark the bottom line as best I can wearing the glove. And we'll see there, that little groove there I got the club is important that the club sits in that groove. Now, if you look at where it is, on the glove here, it's kind of right in this kind of bottom joint of the fingers. So it starts in this little nest area here in the lead finger there. So basically it's in those two grooves in the lead finger, and it works to just above the bottom groove here in the smallest finger. So the fatty part of my hand sits on top of the club. And important when we're taking this grip, or we're placing our club in this groove, as it were, that the fingers point down to the ground. Now, quite often when people do this, the fingers will point up. Now, all of a sudden, it changes the placement of where the club is. So you can see there the difference. So fingers to the ground, into that groove, close the fingers on top of the club, and then we want the thumb to be sitting ever so slightly to the trail side of the grip, ever so slightly. This V here points between my chin and right shoulder. That is the perfect placement. So again, if you have a weak grip, the hand will be pointing more over here. We'll be able to see less knuckles in the hand. The V will point more towards this side of my body. If I had a strong grip, the V points more to my trail shoulder, and I'll be able to see more knuckles. Now, the ideal number of knuckles would be probably 2 to 3, okay? Depending on the size of the hands, you might see slightly more knuckles, okay? So don't worry if you can see 3, and I'm saying 2. Don't worry if it's just 2. Look more about where the V's are and the placement of that groove there. So, cradling the hands, putting the club on the grip like that every time as a process is ideal. Let's just do that again. Hold the club in the air, fingers to the floor, into that groove, cradle on, right hand below. So, key number 1, palm grip. Get the grip in the fingers. That is the key thing for me, regardless of anything else. Now, as I said, most slicers will have this kind of weak grip. So we'll see here, both hands are rotated too far to the lead side on the handle. This basically makes the club face want to open up in the backswing and return open at impact. So again, if you are a slicer, a fader, mover of the ball left to right, and you want to reduce that and you have a weak grip, this would be the first place to start. So we want to feel that these hands rotate themselves more to the right hand side. So one of the ways in helping you do that is using a T. So placing a T, like I have there, between my thumb and lead finger and my lead hand, get that T to point straight up or even slightly to the right hand side of the shaft at address is a great way of getting our lead hand in the correct position. And if our lead hand's in the correct position, nearly always our trail hand will follow. So it's important to get this lead hand correct. So that would be another place I would start there also. If you don't want to use a T, just stick your lead finger out, and we want that lead finger to be pointing to the left of the shaft as we look here. Okay. I'll just turn around so you can see it at different angles. So that would be the key too. Let the trail hand follow. Now, obviously, if you're a hooker of the golf ball and you have a strong grip, it'll be too far over to this side, and it'll be the same thing. We'd want to weaken those hands then also. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about is the placement of the lead of the trail hand. So quite often what I see with a lot of golfers is trail hand is very high, so the lifeline of the hand gets placed way above the shaft and then can't apply pressure to the shaft in the right way. That then also makes you want to get this hand into a weaker position, which again encourages the face to open, but again doesn't allow you to feel the compression on the shaft onto the ball and into the ground as we'd want to through impact. So having this hand wide term as lower, not changing the strength, but changing the center of gravity within the hand. So again, the lifeline is pressed into that thumb, like so. So we have this pushing action correctly through impact would be another key one for me. So if you think about what we've said so far, we're talking about gripping in the fingers, gripping it appropriately, strong, weak, or neutral, depending on your ball flight, and then having the trail hand placed at the correct height, so center of gravity pushes into the shaft correctly. Those are the key things so far. Last thing I want to talk to you about is gaps. So I see with a lot of my players that they'll have quite a lot of gaps, especially around the linking of the hands. So some of them will use overlap, some will use interlock and baseball and so on. It doesn't really matter for me what you use. My preference would be overlap because of this very reason. So if I grip the golf club now, I don't want to see big gaps appearing between my little finger on my trail hand and my first finger on my lead hand. If we have gaps in there, quite often through impact, we get a lot of this club head throw away and lack of control of the club head through impact. So the more we can create what I would call correct tension, appropriate tension, pressure, security and stableness with the hands onto the grip is a must. So having the appropriate grip size, making sure you feel comfortable, but also make sure your hands can get round the grip correctly. Make sure the grip doesn't feel too thin, so your fingers are all getting a bit messed up and bunched up, is important also. But making sure we don't have huge gaps pointing round. And when we're talking about the trail hand, I do like to see what I call a trigger finger and a pinch. So I want basically this little bulb here popping up in my hand. I want to see a gap just here between my fingers. So I've got that kind of pinching action as well to support my right hand through impact. And I want that to be maintained through impact. I see quite a lot of golfers that will start with that pinching action, and then through impact the finger slips back and they end up with the hand rotating round and so on. And by the way, if you get any wear in your glove, it's because your hands are moving, okay? Now that might be caused by how you're holding the club, but essentially your hands are moving through the impact area, which causes that friction, which causes that rubbing of the grip and causes that marking. So that's a sign that your hands are a little bit unstable through impact. The last thing I want to touch on very briefly is grip pressure. Now, a lot of people will say, I'm gripping it too hard, how hard should I grip it, etc. Now, for me, I want you to have firm hands, okay? I want the hands to be in control of that club. Now, in an ideal world, you're swinging this golf club, say 80, 90 mile an hour with an iron, somewhere around there. And some of you may not be at that speed, some of you might be faster. But let's say 80 mile an hour, right? If we haven't got security with our hands on that club at 80 mile an hour, we're going to have slippage. If we have slippage, we can move this club face an odd degree or so. Now in golf, an odd degree or so is huge. The ball flight is going to change dramatically. Now I do want you to have loose wrists. So kind of firm hands. Make sure the club can't be twisted around if someone tries to grab it and move it. Make sure we've got structure to our arms, but loose wrists so I can rotate the club for sure. I don't want it to be, oh my God, that's so stiff I can't move the club, but I would want it to be the wrist rotating rather than the hands being shifted and the grip being shifted within the hands. So the pressure is important. So these would be the key things I would see people do wrong within the grips. Okay, so the placement in the fingers, the weakness, the strength, the gappiness, and the lifeline position. So I want you to have a look. Now, if your ball flight is dead straight, probably don't look at your grip, just keep doing what you're doing. If you struggle with contact or power though, check out the palm. If you hit the ball offline, curvature, anyway, then the club face is either open or closed. If the ball's moving left or right, the face is open. If the ball flight's moving right to left, the face is closed. So if that is happening, check out the grip first. Now, if it matches to the fault, then it's worth a change. If it doesn't match to the fault, don't change it just yet. Try and feel that we work on the other part of the golf swing to make it match your fault. So if you have a strong grip, I'd want you to hit the ball with too much right to left movement for a right-handed golfer, too much draw spin, hook spin. When that starts to happen, you can start to make your grip more orthodox with safety and trust. Okay, so if you start doing it the other way around, you're going to have a better looking grip, but probably a worse looking golf game. And that's definitely not the way I want to coach, and definitely not the way I want you to play. So there we have it. There's some information for you on the grip. Hope you've enjoyed that. If you have, please click like and share the video. I'd really appreciate if you do that. It really helps my channel, grow. And I really want to make this channel about the content you want it to be. So also comment down below, tell me what videos you want to see, request some topics, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So lastly, if you haven't already subscribed or followed, please hit my logo down this bottom corner here. Join me in my journey. Let me help you improve your golf and enjoy your golf more. So thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Hope to see you again here soon.